They called my ambition childish folly. I remember the words, sharp as shards of glass, echoing in that polished boardroom. My name is Olivia, and on that day, I watched my dream turn to ashes, publicly incinerated. Mr. Harrison, a man whose presence filled every corner of the room, leaned back in his leather chair, a smug smile playing on his lips. Olivia, he drawled, his voice laced with patronizing amusement, this entire concept of yours is nothing but childish folly. The words hung heavy in the air, a public execution of my vision. Around the table, faces I once considered allies shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. I wanted to scream, to flash out, but all I could do was clench my fists under the table, the humiliation burning a trail up my neck. But to understand that moment, to grasp the full weight of his contempt and the silent betrayal of others, we need to go back. Back to a time when my dreams still felt tangible, before they were systematically dismantled, piece by agonizing piece. I was barely out of college, a whirlwind of ideas and boundless energy. My mind buzzed with possibilities, envisioning a future where design wasn't just aesthetic, but deeply empathetic, solving real-world problems with elegance and efficiency. I dreamt of revolutionizing the way we interacted with everyday objects, making technology feel intuitive, almost an extension of ourselves. My initial designs for a modular, sustainable home system, capable of adapting to various climates and family sizes, earned me top honors. My professors called me a visionary. I was just Olivia, an idealist with a sketchbook full of breakthroughs. I joined Maxwell Industries, a name synonymous with innovation, or so I thought. My father, Richard Maxwell, had founded the company decades ago, building it from a garage startup into a formidable empire. He'd always encouraged my unconventional thinking, but the corporate structure I stepped into was a different beast entirely. It was a world steeped in tradition, where youth and an overtly dreamy appearance were often mistaken for naivety. I quickly learned that being the founder's daughter didn't grant me automatic respect. It often made me a target. My suggestions for integrating AI into our product development cycle, based on extensive research and market analysis, were routinely met with a dismissive wave. Too theoretical. Thompson, the head of R&D, would often grunt. My meticulously prepared reports on consumer shifts towards eco-conscious alternatives sat unread on desks, gathering dust. I once proposed a complete overhaul of our manufacturing process to reduce waste by 30%, showing projected savings in the millions. The idea was shelved only for a watered-down version credited to a senior male colleague, James, to resurface a year later. It's just how things are done here, dear Eleanor, my assistant, had whispered apologetically, seeing the sting in my eyes. The chief architect of my frustration, however, was Robert Harrison. He was an old guard, a board member who had known my father for decades. Robert was a man who saw progress as a threat and any deviation from the established norm as a personal affront. He found particular delight in belittling my potential, often making snide remarks about my feminine intuition as a substitute for actual data. "Olivia, stick to the brochures," he'd quipped once during a meeting where I presented a detailed strategy for expanding into emerging markets. His words were a constant dull ache, a reminder of where I supposedly stood. My most ambitious endeavor, a revolutionary AI-driven design platform named Nexus, was the culmination of years of my life. It promised to cut design time by half, allowing for unparalleled customization and precision. I poured my heart and soul into it, convinced it would change everything. But even Nexus, my brainchild, was now being rebranded. They were calling it Project Phoenix, and Anthony Blackwood, a recent hire with a booming voice and a knack for self-promotion, was at the helm. They had taken everything, stripped my name from it, claiming it was too complex for me to lead. I was crushed. Yet, as I stared at the revised project brief, buried deep in the fine print of the legal document, I saw a loophole. A single, almost invisible clause. Was it enough? Could one small detail truly change everything? The loophole, that single, almost invisible clause, was a mirage. A cruel trick of the light designed to give me false hope. Anthony Blackwood, with his booming voice and even louder ambition, seized control of Project Phoenix with a predatory grin. My brainchild, Nexus, was now nothing more than a footnote in his grand narrative, stripped of its original name, and, more importantly, stripped of my contribution. They didn't just sideline me, they erased me. Meetings I had meticulously prepared for were suddenly held without my knowledge. My access to the project's core documents evaporated overnight. Emails from my team went unanswered, or worse, were returned with a curt note that I was a ghost haunting the very halls where my ideas were being brought to life. By someone else. The whispers began subtly, then grew into a roaring chorus. Olivia is too emotional, I overheard one junior colleague say, just loud enough for me to catch. Robert Harrison, of course, was the conductor of this insidious orchestra. During a performance review, a cruel mockery of the process, he looked at me with an almost triumphant smirk. Olivia, your recent performance shows a distinct lack of judgment. Perhaps this role isn't suited to your... The implication was clear. I was too feminine, too dreamy, to handle the demands of the corporate world. My ambition, once lauded, was now my gravest flaw. The choice was no choice at all. They wanted to bury me gracefully, to prevent any ripple in their carefully constructed narrative. I was a liability, a loose end they needed to tie up. The public humiliation, being forced to pack my belongings under the scrutinizing gaze of colleagues I once considered friends, felt like a branding iron pressed against my soul. Each box I filled with my personal effects. My favorite design books, the framed photo of my father and me at the company's grand opening, felt like a brick on my chest. I was a failure. The words of Mr. Harrison, Childish Folly, echoed in the hollow space where my dreams used to be. My father, Richard Maxwell, had built this empire from scratch. What would he think of his daughter, dismissed and disgraced? The weight of his legacy, which I had so desperately tried to uphold, now felt like a crushing burden. One afternoon, as I was clearing out the last few items from a dusty old cabinet in my office, a cabinet no one else seemed to care about, filled with ancient company archives, my fingers brushed against something unexpected. Tucked away behind a stack of faded annual reports from the early 2000s was a plain manila envelope. No name, no date. Just a faint impression of Project Phoenix budget review on the cover. My project. My old project. Curiosity, a flicker in the vast darkness of my despair, compelled me to open it. Inside were not old budget reviews, but a series of cryptic invoices, offshore bank statements, and email exchanges. My breath caught in my throat as I started piecing them together. It wasn't just my project they stole. It was a sophisticated scheme to siphon funds from Maxwell Industries itself. Inflated vendor costs, shell companies, payments routed through obscure accounts, all linked to Project Phoenix. And at the heart of it, clear as day, were the names: Robert Harrison and Anthony Blackwood. The initial shock gave way to a cold, searing rage. This wasn't about my ambition. This was about outright theft, betrayal, and deep-seated corruption. They hadn't just taken my work. They had used it as a cover, a front for their illicit activities, systematically bleeding the company my father built dry. My grief, my despair crystallized into a diamond-hard resolve. This was no longer just about me. This was about justice. This was about truth. I clutched the envelope, the flimsy paper, now feeling like a weighty weapon. The evidence was irrefutable, devastating. It could bring down Harrison, Blackwood, and perhaps others, shattering their polished reputations and exposing their crimes. But carrying this knowledge, holding these documents, was like holding a live wire. It could ignite a firestorm that would consume everything in its path, including me. Could I really stand against such powerful men, knowing the danger this information posed? Could I risk everything to fight for a truth that might destroy me in the process? They thought they had buried me. But as their names burned into my mind from the damning documents clutched in my hand, the real question became terrifyingly clear. Could I afford not to fight? My father's life's work, the company he built from nothing, was being devoured by these opportunists, and the truth I had stumbled upon was far more dangerous than anything they could have imagined. I had to fight. The question that had haunted me for weeks, how would they truly react when I, the ghost they thought they had buried, reappeared, was about to be answered. I walked into the very boardroom where Robert Harrison had mocked my ambition, where Anthony Blackwood had claimed my legacy. The room felt smaller, the air thicker with the weight of unspoken resentments and carefully constructed lies. Heads turned, a ripple of whispers following my path. Harrison and Blackwood sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, their faces a mixture of surprise, annoyance, and a flicker of something colder, disdain. "Olivia," Robert Harrison began, his voice dripping with condescension. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. This meeting is for the board, not for—" He glanced at Anthony, who offered a patronizing half-smile. Anthony Blackwood nodded, his eyes narrowed in a familiar, dismissive way. "Perhaps it's time you moved on, Olivia." My spine stiffened, but my expression remained impassive. I moved to the only empty chair, directly opposite them, and set down a slim, unassuming briefcase. "On the contrary, Harrison, Mr. Blackwood," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the tremor that threatened to seize me. "I believe this meeting is precisely where I need to be." A hush fell over the room. From my briefcase, I began to produce documents, one by one, laying them carefully on the table. Each was a meticulously cataloged piece of the puzzle Daniel and Sarah had helped me assemble. "Board members," I addressed them, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces. "For months, Robert Harrison and Anthony Blackwood have been systematically siphoning funds from Maxwell Industries through a series of shell corporations." I gestured to the first document. "Here, you'll find the original purchase orders for proprietary software that never materialized, signed by Mr. I clicked a remote, and a large screen flickered to life, displaying a complex web of financial transactions. "This," I continued, pointing to a highlighted transfer, "is a direct payment from Maxwell Industries to Phoenix Solutions, a company registered in the Cayman Islands. Its sole director?" Harrison's face began to flush, a vein pulsing in his temple. Anthony Blackwood pushed back from the table, his usual composure cracking. He blustered. "Baseless accusations, Olivia?" But I was relentless. "Unstable?" I countered, pulling out a printout of an email chain. "This email, from Mr. Harrison to Mr. Robert Harrison lunged forward, his face contorted with rage. "This is doctored," he roared, slamming his fist on the table. But the email, vivid and unedited, remained on the screen. Next, I played an audio recording. A muffled conversation, but unmistakably Harrison and Blackwood's voices. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the undeniable weight of truth. The board members exchanged shocked glances, their initial skepticism giving way to dawning horror. There was no denying it. The numbers, the emails, the audio, it was all there, damning and irrefutable. Harrison and Blackwood tried to deny, to deflect, their voices rising in pitch and desperation. But their words were hollow, crumbling under the relentless assault of evidence. Their weak excuses evaporated as I unveiled the final pieces. Expert analyses from forensic accountants, including Sarah Jenks's own meticulous reports, confirming the fraudulent nature of the transactions. The board, once so quick to dismiss me, now looked at them with cold, hard judgment. Finally, the chairman, a stern-faced woman named Eleanor Vance, cleared her throat, her voice cutting through the suddenly silent room. "Robert Anthony?" she said, her tone devoid of emotion. "The evidence presented by Ms. Thorne is overwhelming. Effective immediately, your positions are terminated." A wave of relief, so profound it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. I had done it. I had faced them and I had won. I looked directly across the table, meeting Robert Harrison's furious, defeated gaze. Then I turned to Anthony Blackwood, whose face was now a mask of utter despair. I offered them a small, almost imperceptible smile. It was gentle, yes, but beneath its surface lay a satisfaction so deep, so absolute. It was almost intoxicating. This wasn't merely revenge. It was the vindication of a dream, the reassertion of a legacy. I had cleared my name. I had exposed their lies. I had brought them down. Olivia had returned, not just as a survivor, but as a victor. But as I walked out of that boardroom, leaving the ruins of their careers behind, a new, daunting question began to form in my mind. Now that I had torn down their corruption, what exactly would be the legacy I would build in its place? Now that I had torn down their corruption, what exactly would be the legacy I would build in its place? That question became my guiding star. After the dust settled in Maxwell Industries, Eleanor Vance, the chairman, approached me with an offer. She wanted me to lead a reformed Project Phoenix, purged of its past taint, promising full autonomy. It was tempting, a chance to reclaim what was mine within the very structure that had once almost crushed me. But something held me back. I had fought to liberate my vision, not just to bring it back to its old cage, even if gilded. My vision deserved a fresh start, a clean slate unburdened by past shadows. So I respectfully declined Eleanor's offer. Instead, with the help of Daniel and Sarah, who had stood by me through the darkest hours, I founded my own company, Phoenix Innovations. We started small, working from a modest office, but our ambition was boundless, and our foundation was built on integrity, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to the values I had always championed. Phoenix Innovations wasn't just a business. It was a testament to the power of a dream reclaimed. Project Phoenix, my original Childish Folly, finally soared under its rightful wings. We launched initiatives that weren't about maximizing profit at any cost, but about creating genuine value, solving real-world problems. Our sustainable energy solutions began to power communities previously underserved. Our educational platforms opened doors for countless students, and our healthcare innovations made quality care accessible. My ideas, once ridiculed and dismissed, were now tangible realities, improving lives, fostering growth, and inspiring change. The industry, which had once seen me as an emotional amateur, now lauded Olivia Thorne as a visionary leader. Colleagues who had once whispered behind my back now sought my counsel, respecting not just my intellect, but my unyielding ethical stance. My legacy wasn't just etched in the balance sheets of Phoenix Innovations. It was woven into the fabric of the communities we served, a testament to belief and principled leadership. I often found myself standing in the bustling offices of Phoenix Innovations, watching my team bring their passion to life, and I would reflect. I remembered the chill of Robert Harrison's contempt, the sting of Anthony Blackwood's dismissal. I recalled the isolation, the countless nights I spent questioning myself, battling the voices that told me my ambition was nothing more than naive delusion. But I also remembered the quiet strength that grew within me, the stubborn refusal to let anyone define my worth or limit my dreams. My journey had been a crucible, forging a resilience I never knew I possessed. It taught me that perseverance isn't just about holding on. It's about holding on with conviction, even when every fiber of your being screams to let go. It affirmed that believing in yourself, fiercely and unapologetically, is the most powerful weapon against those who seek to diminish you. My dream, once labeled a childish folly, had not only survived, it had blossomed into a thriving enterprise, a beacon of what could be achieved when one dared to defy expectations. They mocked my vision, dismissed my passion, and tried to bury my dream. But today, Phoenix Innovations stands as an undeniable legacy, a vibrant, living testament to the strength of a woman they utterly underestimated. It is a monument to every dismissed idea, every hushed whisper, every tear shed in frustration. My childish folly became the very foundation upon which I built an empire of purpose and integrity. So, to all of you out there watching this story unfold, remember Olivia. Remember my journey. If there's a dream burning within you, no matter how small or audacious, nurture it. Protect it. Don't let anyone, no matter how powerful or dismissive, tell you it's not worth pursuing. Your unique vision, your unwavering belief, and your relentless spirit are your greatest assets. Stand tall, defy the doubters, and build your own incredible legacy. It's time to show them what your childish folly can truly become.